Sitting in on gigs like that is the worst experience.
Wait, what? What do you mean?
Because think about this. I remember the first time I sat in at the Beacon, Warren called me was when he was still playing with the Allman Brothers. And he asked me to do Elizabeth Reed.
Yeah.
So first of all, that's not an easy tune. Second of all, I never heard it in my life.
And it's a standard, so everybody knows
exactly.
it.
I
in
never
the
knew, and I jumped in and I played. But
Today's episode is sponsored by Gator Cases. Guitarists, like any other musician, value the advantages of proper protection for their gear. Guitars, amps, effects, and accessories all need safe transport and storage. Luckily, Gator's got you covered.
Do you feel like when you play at the bitter end with like Joe Bonamassa, or you play with Guthrie Trapp, or whoever else, do you find yourself catering what you do on the guitar to other players, or do you say, when I'm on stage with Joe Bonamassa, I'm gonna be myself and he's gonna be Joe? Or like in those settings, does your playing change and evolve to fit the scene?
Good question. A little bit. I think the thing that changes the most is, I'm not gonna. If I play with Joe, for example, you have to play music that fits everybody. So I'm not gonna bring like some heavy.
No rearm of giant steps on that gig.
Not really. Same with Guthrie or whoever. So you gotta kind of bring stuff that will work for both of us, So we play stuff that harmonically is simpler, obviously. And then in terms of my playing, I think it stays the same. I do get influenced by the other players, so maybe I'm not gonna go super out or jazzy at that gig. I don't know. It depends on the situation, but yeah, it does affect. It definitely affects the material that we play, but I think it does affect my playing too.
Osnoy, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah,
it's great to see you. Sounds incredible too. I always love watching you play.
Really?
You're always so great to watch play, and I love seeing you sit in with other guys, because I feel like when you sit in with Guthrie or when you sit in with Joe or any of those guys, your playing is always so different and complementary to them.
Actually, this is an interesting topic that you should add this to the thing.
What's we're in? We're still recording.
Oh, okay, still recording. So I'm like the king of sitting in with famous people.
Yeah.
And sitting in on gigs like that is the worst experience.
Wait, what? What do you mean?
Because think about this.
I'm thinking.
I'm going to see Eric Johnson. Eric's playing. He's been shredding and all like warmed up for like an hour already with his own amps and everything. And then he calls me to go and play one song like Impressions or a freaking Cauldron. And I have to, you're not warmed up. You're not playing your own amp. You never did a sound check, nothing. And you have to come and play and kind of like bring it, It's in one hand, it's fun because you're playing with those guys. But on the other hand, it's so stressful and it's so uncomfortable. And I've been doing it for years. I just did one this last New Year's. A lot of times I will sit in with Warren Hands at Government Mule.
At the Beacon.
Yeah, the Beacon. I do that every year for years. So I always call him. I said, "Hey, I'm coming down." He goes like, "Okay, you want to play this tune?" I was like, "Sure." So then this time he goes like, "Okay, just listen to this one song," and it was a super uber fast tune. And I was like, "You motherfucker, you playing here for already 2.5 hours with your amp all warmed up. All you guys are ready to, and I'm jumping in for one song and I have to play super fast tempo."
So why do you do it? Because it is fun?
Because it's what it is. I don't know. It's nothing else to do.
So what do you do? Like I saw you hop in at the bitter end with Guthrie. Guthrie was playing.
Yeah, it's the same. It's all the same. It's always the same. You go in, you sit in with all those guys. They've already been playing for like half an hour. They have the sound all tweaked out. They're all warmed up. And then you jump in and you're like, okay, I guess that's all I got now. Like it would have been probably better if I would play a couple of tunes, but it's usually just one song. I remember the first time I sat in at the Beacon, Warren called me was when he was still playing with the Allman Brothers. And I didn't really know the Allman Brothers in Israel. I knew them a little bit when I moved here. So he calls me and it's him and Derek. And, the Allman Brothers. And I come in and I didn't really know what the fuck I was doing, And he asked me to do Elizabeth Reed.
Yeah.
So first of all, that's not an easy tune. Second of all, I never heard it in my life.
And it's a standard, so everybody knows
exactly.
it.
I never knew. And I jumped in and I played, but I was like...
So what do you do in that circumstance?
You
just listen?
You listen, and I would say one thing, and all those situations, it's mostly once you're on stage, let's say with Warren, for example, it's very chilled. So it's easy to kind of get comfortable, but they have the advantage, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you love, I feel like every time you're around Nashville guys like Tom Bukovac, they are so enamored with your playing and what you do. And do you feel like there's a different thing between guys who work in Nashville and guys who work in New York? Like Tom Bukovac was like the best guy in Nashville. He was sitting down with you and he was enamored by your theory and what you do.
I think the thing about all those Nashville guys that like what I do is the fact that I have a lot of bluesy, like roots in blues and rock, and I have that sound too, or at least I can get those sounds because I've been doing studio work my whole life too. I'm not like them, but still, but I have all the jazz knowledge, so for them it's easier to grab it because they hear it in a context that it's not like swinging. It's like more over groove music, you know. So it's almost like we're playing an R&B tune, but I can go for the jazz stuff, you know. So it's easier for them to kind of digest it that way. I think that's why, you know, I'm a little more as opposed to like a jazz guy that will play jazz all night. They can't grab any of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's what it is. It's either that or my looks.
It's probably both. You were just in the studio, I think, with Andrew Sinwick recording a record.
One day
In the record.
One day, 2 takes each song.
Do you learn it? Because he spends so much time in the studio. Is there anything you observe about how he operates in the studio that you took away?
I wish I did, but not on this album because he called me and he goes, hey, man, because we did a couple of gigs together. It was funny. He's like, hey, you want to do a record together? I was like, I don't have any music or anything, but if you want to do something, I'll do it with you, you know? So he put everything together. I brought like maybe 3 tunes that are old songs that I recorded a long time ago or something. And then we went into a studio for one day. We did a little rehearsal, and then we did one night, 1 or 2 nights at the Baked Potato. I can't remember. It was me, Andrew, Marvin Smith, and Hadrian Ferrard. So we played the music before I went to the studio. Yeah, it was 2 nights. So 4 shows, I think. Or maybe 1 night, I can't remember. 2 shows. And then the next day we went to the studio literally for 1 day, and we recorded the whole thing in a day.
Why is it worth, I mean, I thought the record was great. Why is it worth doing that? Does that get your chops up in the studio? Does that get your creative juices flowing? Is it just fun to go in the studio?
I think it's fun to do it.
It's just fun to do it.
Yeah, and it's stressful to do this kind of recordings because it's all live. It's like, on that record, it's really all live. I don't think there's been hardly any overdubs or fixes or anything like that. It's just takes, you know? I don't know, when the music is good and it's fun to play and you just do it. You don't really think too much about why, you know?
Yeah. Is that what motivates you to just keep putting out records? I mean, you have a lot of solo records.
Yeah.
Do you put them out because they create like a cycle for you, then tour and then promote? And
yeah, that's one reason, but the main reason is because I got nothing else to do. What I'll do if I don't do that? Like I got, you know, even if I wouldn't record a record in a year or two, the way I develop is kind of like I think about the next thing all the time. So it's easy to think about the next thing as in the form of a record. You know what I mean? Okay, the next thing, I want to get into more, I don't know, blues stuff or more straight ahead. So you start to write in that style. You start to play those tunes. And I'm lucky because I can play in New York regularly, you know? So I can really develop what I want to develop. But if I wouldn't do that, I don't know what would I do. You know, it would be weird for me to live a life without a musical meaning, I would say, you know what I mean?